Welcome to the Take Your Power Back Show with Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach Kim Yeater. Today's empowering program will encourage you to step into your power, to take action in your leadership, and allow your voice to be heard. Listen in today as we speak to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be inspired. Be encouraged. Be transformed. Together, let's take your power back with our host, Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach, Kim Yeater.
Welcome to the Take Your Power Back Show. I'm Kim Yeater, and today we are diving into a provocative and controversial topic: the weaponization of cancer, the monkey virus, and the Kennedy assassination. My guest today is Judyth Vary Baker, a scientist, a witness, and by her account, the girlfriend of Lee Harvey Oswald during a shadowy Cold War plot tied to the CIA, Fidel Castro, and perhaps even JFK's death. Judyth's intimate story bridges science and what some would say conspiracy in ways that challenge what we've been told. And Judyth Vary Baker, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to have you. I'm going to pull you on into the room because we got a big day ahead of us. Hi, Judyth. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
It is an
by the way, we're not the conspiracists. They are.
I would agree with that completely. We are not conspiracists. And, what we're doing is we are really bringing the truth into the light right now. To be able to have you tell your story is a pretty big deal. So, Judyth, let me ask you, let's really set the stage here. Your journey begins with a pivotal moment in history. It was October 1957 when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. It was a wake-up call for America. Now, how did that event pull you into this extraordinary path?
Well, my father was already had security clearance because he was a really advanced electrical engineer and was working in rocketry and everything and advanced electronics. So that kind of gave me a head start as far as understanding and logic and reason and just everything that somebody my age probably otherwise wouldn't have known. But we had these tests, IQ tests. The CIA was seeking anybody they could find that they could train to match, what was going on in the Soviet Union. We were way behind. We are today again that way. But I was chosen. I had the highest IQ in the state of Florida, and CIA showed up at my door. Basically, I ended up with my own lab when I was only 15.
Wow. The CIA shows up at your door, and your talent did not go unnoticed. By 1961, at 17 years old, you were making waves, giving germ-free mice lung cancer in only 7 days. With your work, you were verified by 2 Nobel laureates and 3 top cancer researchers.
Yes.
Newspapers picked you up nationally. Tell us what happened next.
Well, what happened next is located one newspaper article that's important because they wrote down the right things. They mentioned that I was assigned after being given fast track training for an entire summer at Roswell Park Institute. Mm-hmm. This is after I crashed a national science meet that was only, I'll put it this way, they were going to arrest me. But I had nobody that could assess what I was doing, even though I had high-class oncologists and everybody. But these were the top researchers in the country and maybe in the world, and including the vice president of the American Cancer Society in charge of all the research for American Cancer Society. Anyway, I ended up on this fast-track training, and I actually helped improve a very important medium that today is still being used. Now, this was an earlier form of it, but today it's called the RPMI 1640 formula. It also did more things than that. But that was the one, by memorizing that formula, and then I was given this assignment. I was sent to Fort Wayne, where I'd be working with doctors and scientists from Eli Lilly, and at a small university. But I had my own lab, and I had access to 2 hospitals and so on. Now, the reason this is important is the article says clearly that I was assigned to make cancer more deadly. And that you keep that in mind, because for almost 2 more years, what I would be doing would be specializing in making cancer more deadly, detecting cancer also in the bloodstream, and helping to improve this formula. And because I had that advanced knowledge on the formula and all this other, I'm invited then to New Orleans in April of 1963. I'm 19 years old. So,
Wow, 19 years old, invited to New Orleans. And that was to work with Dr. Alton Ochsner. Is that correct? And Dr. Mary Sherman?
Dr. Ochsner. He had a specialist. She was very famous. I was thrilled. I was offered fast track into the medical school and at Tulane, and I would have skipped 2 years and gone into really. It was a wonderful opportunity. I just had to do an internship during the summer. It turned out that this internship would destroy my life, and it would destroy Lee Oswald's life. And we were involved, yes, in trying to save Kennedy. I know that sounds wild, but it's true. That's why the story's been suppressed. Lee Oswald was sent to protect we had a ring of labs working under CIA directive to kill Castro. Mafia was involved as well.
Wow.
And yes, everybody wanted Castro dead. The trouble is the government and the powers that be were so upset with Kennedy that we felt, this is deep inside information, we felt that we were given the idea that if we could kill Castro first, the CIA would focus on Cuba, would get their pride back because of Bay of Pigs and all that, and that they could take the glory again and put off killing Kennedy for another day. That's how bad it was. Everybody in New Orleans, you would not believe, openly talking about killing Kennedy.
Openly talking about. Okay,
Yes.
so is it true that Ochsner was fiercely anti-Castro and he had a
Absolutely. In
deep
fact,
CIA connection? Okay.
We just had a file come out showing that Ed Butler was associated with CIA for years. They just reestablished, this is after the Kennedy assassination, but it says this file just came out. It was partially redacted before, but now it's not. It's clear that Ed Butler of INCA, I-N-C-A, and this is important. INCA was the Information Council for the Americas.
Okay.
This was an anti-Castro, anti-communist organization. They sent out like to 300 radio stations all over Central America, Mexico, everywhere. And this was being sponsored by INCA, which is supposed to not be independent. Well, Ed Butler is contacted by CIA, and obviously they've gotten information from him before. You can tell they're working closely together. Now, he's the founder, he's the co-founder of INCA. Guess who is the other founder?
Tell me.
Whose name is not Alton Ochsner. So you have evidence of he's ferociously anti-Castro, anti-Kennedy also,
Yes.
but of course anti-communist. He believes that Kennedy is a communist and so on. We have a lot of information on that.
Interesting. So is it true?
Washington, D.C. every weekend, Ochsner is.
So he was in DC every weekend. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Now, is it true that you were recruited by them into a secret project, a ring of CIA-funded labs working on an injectable cancer to take out Fidel Castro? Is that true?
That's right. Because he was smoking cigars. They said they tried many ways. By the way, they tried over 600 times to kill Castro. We got that on record.
Yes, I've seen that. Wow.
And they only mentioned some of the silly ones, like exploding seashells or botulism in a diving suit. Boy, that'll kill you. Those things, they don't mention the real serious stuff because they want to use them again. Understand? Yeah. So one of these serious things is weaponizing cancer. They already knew about the SV40 monkey virus. We can show that For example, Alt Noxner injected his grandson and his granddaughter with the Cutter vaccine, earlier polio vaccine. It was loaded with SV40 monkey virus. It killed his grandson in 2 weeks. That's when and he trusted his doctors. He said, and he talked to us about this. We trusted our doctors. I mean, I'm saying that all of us did.
Don't we see that today? We're trusting our doctors.
Not
and we're
anymore.
taking-
I don't think
Yep.
so.
We've
All
been
right.
open.
So it was horrible. But
Yeah.
then he realized that, okay, maybe you can't get the doctors there to kill Castro. He trusts them. But wait a minute, when the doctor orders some penicillin from the refrigerator, who hands it to him? He doesn't go and make up the penicillin and put it in the refrigerator. Or if he asks for an x-ray, the tech is one that turns it on.
That's
But what if it's relabeled so it goes super high instead? So you have many ways that you can go and kill somebody, and it won't be the doctor's fault. And you'll never know because you'll peel the label off, see? And the other penicillin jars or little capsules or whatever will be okay, because that one will be gone.
Right.
Meanwhile, you can get the injection of cancer can proceed, you see, with an immune system that's been pulled down because of what should have been just an ordinary x-ray. Castro was always getting to see if he had TB or parasites or anything, because if he'd been out in the wilderness for years, fighting. And so he always had to have all these checkups all the time and make sure also he wasn't getting poisoned or he had a cancer growing. They already feared that. So imagine.
Wow. They thought
you
through
start- you
every
dial up-
single step of the plan.
You dial up that x-ray machine and again, take the label off. But what happens if you get over x-rayed? You're going to get a dry cough. And they're going to say, oh my gosh, and they're going to go x-ray him again to see if he's got some kind of lung problem or whatever. You're going to get another dose, okay? Then he looks really sick. There's something wrong with his blood because he got the x-ray overdoses. So then they're going to give him an injection of penicillin, only it's not.
Only it's not, and he died of lung cancer.
Of course, he knew what got to him. There was lung and stomach cancer, and so did Chavez as well.
See,
So
yes.
Castro said to Chavez, watch out, they've got something in cancer that can kill you, and we're trying to solve this problem, about how to cure cancer.
Right.
That's
wow. Wow. Complete weaponization. Okay, so this is where the story takes a wild turn, Judyth. Enters Lee Harvey Oswald. Tell us about how he became part of your life. Tell us about that moment.
Well, imagine we're trying to kill Castro. Castro has already exposed several things going on in New Orleans. He knows that there was a big group there that was trained to go and attack him and he knew that there was a group out there already being trained that had been sent in from Miami. And after they're trained, they sent them to where? To Guatemala. So it looked like that they come from Guatemala, not the U.S. Wow. He also knows that there are doctors that have been assembling. He knows Dr. Oxner and others are definitely hate him and want to kill him. There's an article that came out in the newspaper in 1960, Alt Oxner saying, we doctors have got to get into the Cold War and fight for our country right there. And if you think Castro doesn't notice it, so he is sending spies. Enter Lee Harvey Oswald had returned from 30 months in the USSR and was pretending to be a defector. He was a fake defector. But the methods of how he returned all are too complicated to talk about here. And let's say Bobby Kennedy was involved, all right? Absolutely was. And got him back. I have documents showing that, for instance, Lee had to get had to get a loan from the State Department.
Okay.
While he's in the USSR, because he married a Russian woman and she had a baby, and he's not going to leave him behind. Not that man. He won't. So, but he needs a loan. Now, wait a minute. In small print, it says you have to be a citizen in good standing with the United States. And you have to fill out 6 pages. On page 5, I have the documents, but they've taken them offline, all right? But I downloaded them before they did that.
Nice.
And there you can see he fills out everything he needs for the loan. Excuse me, the air conditioning, something dusty is coming out. It makes me cough.
Mm.
And well, we stopped from using the heater to using the air, and apparently it's a little bit iffy. Any
Get
rate,
some new vents. Go on. Mhm.
so we have a very interesting situation. Lee Oswald is trapped in the USSR because the Eisenhower administration handed everything over to Kennedy, but CIA didn't like Kennedy, so they didn't give him a lot of information. Lee lost a lot of his contacts, and then he requested to get back to the United States. That's the backstory that people don't know. So he goes to the embassy in Moscow, U.S. embassy, and says, I need a loan because I got to bring my wife and my baby back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to leave them here. I'm not going to abandon them. That's the kind of man he was. It's either that or you lose me. Well, they did. They wanted to keep him. He was really good. All right. Don't believe the things about incompetent, stupid, dull, and all that. This is a man who actually smuggled in Elvis Presley records when he so-called defected. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And did some other thing. Why, by doing outrageous things like that, if they caught their records, how are they going to think he's a spy if he's bringing a contraband? You see what I mean? Very smart, very smart. Okay, so he's filling out 6 pages. On page 5, though, he does not fill out. That page says, "What did you do for work in the Soviet Union?" Empty blank, and they still
Oh,
give him a
empty
loan.
blank. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and they give him the loan anyway, just to give you an idea. So he comes back. Now he's got to pretend to be pro-Castro because, after all, he's Soviet. He was a defector. He comes back because he did, according to the official version, he was disillusioned with Russia. Now he's disillusioned with the United States, disillusioned with Russia. And Marina later, under pressure, will say he would have been happy anywhere except on the moon. Okay. So they smeared him up and all that later. Meanwhile, they can use him as a pro-Castro person, you see.
Mm.
So he's brought in to protect this ring of slabs so that Castro's spies don't find it or kill any of them, including
Wow.
me. Well, they were interested in protecting me because I came from the outside. I wasn't located there already. I'm going to be more noticeable, you see, because they bring me in. And so he basically got assigned to protect me. Well, it turns out, and by the way, they released a file today showing that Lee Oswald was henpecked by his wife and picked on and everything, and had a miserable marriage. And that's in the Soviet Union before he even got here. And I promise you, I was married to a man who I got married shortly after arriving in New Orleans. I thought I was in love with him. I was in love with sex, is what it was. I didn't know the difference. And this man married me. The next day, he abandoned me. He was gone for 3 weeks at a time, would just show up just for sex and take off again.
Mm-hmm.
It was heartbreaking. He even sent me a postcard when he passed through New Orleans, but didn't take time to visit his new wife.
Wow. And you were 19 years old, correct?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
And
And
Lee is
Lee Harvey
23.
Oswald was 23. So both
Yeah.
of you were stuck in these marriages that
Yeah.
were not healthy, good marriages. And then what happened from there?
Well, he's protecting me, and in a couple cases, he literally, it all began when he gave me the phone number in case any emergency came up. So that night, it was only a day or 2 later when my husband took me to Mobile. We got a quickie marriage, and I thought, oh, this is because he loves me. So no, it's because he was going to leave, and he didn't want me to know where he was going. So he's gone, and that same night, just about 8 hours after he left, there's a police raid where I'm living. And it turned out I was living in a bordello, and I didn't know it. And boy, did I hate Lee.
Okay, well, let's pause there for a second. So who was this a place that your husband at the time found
Well,
for you?
no, Lee found it for me because he thought it was. Remember, he hadn't been in New Orleans for 10 years.
Oh,
It
and you said it's a
It
bordello.
changed hands. He didn't realize that it was no longer what it used to be.
Wow.
And they had a really beautiful room. By the way, it's in my book, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me. we've stopped several times there with tours, and the owner there, they have a house that has actually been it's so beautiful. So how would we know or guess, or how would Lee? The house is so beautiful with gold plated bathroom accessories and everything, and the faucets. And it's been featured in national magazines. It's so beautiful.
Wow.
And I'm in their parlor. That parlor now holds a baby grand piano and so on. Chandeliers, gorgeous. How would Lee ever know? But at the time, I hated his guts. You put me in this place. Robert has abandoned me, and I don't know where he is. I'm out in the streets. I could have killed any man in sight because my father was also on my case, and I couldn't even go home to my parents. It's a long story about it. Right then, I hated every male with two legs that could walk. All right.
Yeah, I got that.
And well, he got that too. So he was very apologetic. And it turned out that when he made a call to the mafia owner, remember his mother was, I'll put it this way, his mother's sister's married to the mob. And his aunt Lillian is married to Charles Dutz Moret, former prize fighter type, a boxer who actually cleared out the docks for Marcelo. Marcelo loves him. He's got scars all over his face. So it gives him a cushy job. He's one of Marcelo's favorites, you know?
Interesting.
And that's Lee Oswald's aunt's husband. And what about Lee Oswald himself? His mother, when he was a teenager growing up, is dating Carlos Marcelo's driver, Sam Termini. See,
all mafia.
CIA just loves Lee Oswald because the CIA and mafia are working together.
Wow.
Lee Oswald is a trusted liaison between the CIA and the mafia.
Wow.
So you've got this going on. Poor Lee, when he calls someone who owned the place, didn't realize that it had been sold to the mafia and is now something else.
Right.
And he said it. He was so sorry. He said, I met this beautiful young girl, is the way he put it, and she really needs a place where, where she will be well taken care of, or something like that. He said something like that. And
right. Well, there you go.
Placing a pretty girl for services there.
Right.
And of course, I didn't know what was going on.
So what happened? Did you stay there? Did you move out?
Well, no, the police kicked us all out. They did the raid. All these women came out. I didn't know. I should have guessed, but I was naive. I was so naive. I mean, I saw this woman, for example, the first time I came, she's sitting on the red hassock, and they all lived upstairs but me, okay? I'm in the parlor downstairs, and it looked so great. After all, I had beautiful beds she brought in because there wasn't a bed there or anything. She said, this is the last place I can rent, but okay. And I think she thought of me as some kind of girl that make the rest of them look legitimate or something, something like that.
Yes.
And so I didn't know, but I saw this girl and she was kissing a guy. And a couple of days later, I looked, she's there kissing somebody else. I thought she must have broke up with her boyfriend.
Yeah, of course. You're young, 19. Of course you.
And I wondered why there were all these cars at night. They were all gone by morning. It just didn't dawn on me. And I was so embarrassed. But so anyway, no, police. I had a see-through nightgown on because it was my wedding night. I said he left me this. Can you imagine? And now I can see paddy wagons come up, and they're loading up these women. They're only wearing feathers and handcuffs. I mean, that's not much.
Wow.
And I'm in this see-through and almost no panties. You know what I mean? My wedding ensemble, with a rose, where where the tummy is. And all
okay,
that.
so where was Lee Harvey Oswald at that moment?
At that moment, he had just moved in with his with Dutz Moret and his aunt from the YMCA where he had been, but he gave me a phone number. Now the trouble is, I can't call him in the middle of the night because he's married. This woman can't call him in the middle of the night for help, right? I didn't know what it. And the police kicked me out. Imagine, I got Robert Baker's guitar around my neck filled with his clothes. I've got the guitar case and the guitar also. I'm carrying a typewriter on top of a pile of books. I have a suitcase in each hand.
What an image.
And it's the middle of the night. It's 1:00 in the morning. I'm on St. Charles Avenue. And this like these car went by full of Latinos. They went ding da, and I pretended I'm going to a house next door. I'm pushing along a box with my foot, and I hide that in the bushes and travel on. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was going the wrong direction. So I always get lost. So I had to turn around and go past. Now all the people that were there are gone because they were all staring at me, and I didn't dare ask for help. It looked like I was one. For some reason, they didn't take me to the jail, but nobody wanted to talk to me. Well, when I come back across, because I had to turn around, I was going the wrong direction. I remember there was a restaurant that was open for 24 hours. Lee had introduced me to his friend there. Later, we would actually double date with that waitress, and her husband was working for Guy Bannister. Okay, but Bannister's big in this thing.
Okay.
Lee and I would double date with her, and she's on record 35 minutes of film talking about that. I was a stuck-up girl that she didn't like, but we double dated. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, she was profane. She was salt of the earth. Is another way of talking about very salty. Okay. Yeah. Ended up with 10 children. Okay. So I'm pushing. Anyway, don't think I can go another step. I'm an atheist by this time, by the way. God was looking out for me because
His grace, His mercy.
Episcopal church in the middle of the night. I could go no further. I was trying to make it to this restaurant. It's open 24 hours where I was said I'm invited to get a free piece of pie. What I want to do is give a piece of my mind to Lee Oswald.
Of course. You're like, what did you do to me?
Yeah. And so I look, and I see a figure, a lit window way up high in the rectory, and a figure moves. That poor pastor was up so late working on a funeral sermon for the next day. Okay, so I knocked on the door, and they answered. And that pastor was just his name was Pastor Richardson, and he was the same height as me, a little guy.
Wow.
With his wife. And I collapsed, and started crying all over them. And they brought me in. And later I learned that no matter who knocked at their door, they let them in. I slept on the couch. Now I know I slept on the couch because they had kids in their other rooms, but
yeah.
And I didn't dare call Lee at that time of night because I knew he was with his aunt and uncle. And they were a really strange woman call in the middle of the night when he's married. That would look really bad. So next morning, Lee comes over at lunchtime. He feels horrible. I could have killed him. But anyway, and we were not friends, but he said, I pledge you, and he made several calls. He finally found someone he had known when he was a kid. He gave her a puppy one time, and she taught arts and crafts at that St. George's church, which he himself had gone to several times. There was Episcopal church. His mother usually had him go to a Lutheran church, but a couple times, I think this woman actually went to Lutheran churches teaching arts and crafts as well to kids. At any rate, she said, we show up. She said, I'll take anybody. She said, I had 2 guys in here and they ruined the bathroom. She said, would it be all right with this lady if she has to take her baths in my kitchen? There was a tub that he installed the kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
Well, no, later this would prove that I had been there though, because the new owners, they showed them the pipes and everything where the hot water came straight down the middle of the kitchen. And they remembered that a bathtub was in the kitchen. Things like that helped to verify,
Yes.
But
So
anyway, it turned out Lee was, so I got situated there with Susie Hanover. And the whole story is in the book. But so Lee's feeling really badly, and he feels a special connection. And on top of that, though, I have to say, I'm so disgusted with my husband, and I find out that wasn't Lee's fault. But basically, because of the security clearance of my family and the fact that I had connections with people that were anti-Castro, fiercely so. I mean, I had dated Tony Lopez Fresquet, who was the son of Castro's finance minister, for example. I had security clearance. I had all this going, and CIA doesn't tell people everything need to know. When he was discovering all this, and I had come in early, what happened is they thought I was on the secret side. They didn't realize I was on the unwitting side. By the time my doctors got back, it was too late. The cat was out of the bag. I met David Ferry. I met all the people that were, they had the ring of labs, but they had to break the ring so the doctors wouldn't catch on to each other. And that was, they used a lab. It was run by David Ferry. Last year we got another witness. We have him all the time. His name is Rhett Accardo. Rhett Accardo has confirmed that his father introduced David Ferry to Dr. Mary Sherman. So we have the connections. Everything I ever tell you, I've got documents, I've got receipts for them.
So good.
There's nothing that is not documentable.
So good. All right. So let's connect the dots here. Let's connect today's show, the weaponization of cancer, the monkey virus, and the Kennedy assassination. Now, theorists often link these ideas, suggesting the Cold War experience where biological weapons like cancer-causing viruses from monkeys might tie to JFK's death. So what did you see in that lab? Is there a connection?
Oh my gosh, yes. You see, the whole effort to kill Castro was set up because CIA wanted to get they wanted to get their reputation back. They had a terrible, as you know, fiasco that occurred at Bay of Pigs, for which Kennedy had to take the blame, even though they never told him all the stuff they were going to do there. They were trying to discredit Kennedy so they'd get more power. When they realized that this was a big flop, Kennedy refused to bomb Havana. He refused to let us start World War III. We hate him.
Right.
All right, so that's the background there. Now, there are two forces going on. Some who knew, like Oxner and others, hated Kennedy and wanted to see him dead, but they also hated Castro, and that included, of course, the mafia and many other sources. Here in New Orleans, Castro knows. He knows there's a lot going on there. We have, for example, people being trained out at Lake Pontchartrain. Then not the first time. This is like the third or fourth batch of guerrillas. Then they're shipped to Guatemala, you see, and then they say the United States had nothing to do with it. You know, that's the way that goes.
Yeah.
So he'd like to go and infiltrate these camps, and he did so. One of the one that Lee caught, his name was Fernando Fernandez, and Lee got him blamed, turned the tables on him, made him look like he was working against Castro and infiltrating, and got him arrested in Miami and all. So there are a lot of things people don't know about Lee. What everybody, you think that Lee Oswald, why would he be pretending to be pro-Castro?
Right.
How is he going to protect us if he's anti-Castro? So he has to, but unfortunately, this sets him up so that he's easily framed. This guy was supposed to be a defector. He was our man. Now, here, because I knew so many people that were involved with the CIA and stuff like that, why he thought, when I first met him, he came to intercede. I didn't understand at the time. I thought it was accidental. It took a long time to understand that that wasn't the case. But I was trying to get information from, is my fiance ever coming? I'll tell you, the true fiance in my life turned out to be Lee Oswald in the end. All right. That's how close we got. But in this case, my fiance, it was like this. Well, I think I'll come. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. I was angry because he said he'd write every day and he wasn't. I was going to by the way, when it came early, my doctors were out of town, and I've told this story many times. It's in the book in detail. But YWCA didn't have me on record as I thought I had my nice room. They're going to get a steak dinner. Everybody's going to champagne. I mean, they really treated me wonderfully. All right. All these doctors and everything, because I had knowledge they didn't have.
Right.
I have a photographic memory, so I could read hundreds of documents and pull them all up and tell them.
Amazing. I mean, just when I was on with you before the show, I sent you something, and within seconds, you read that whole thing, and I was like, what? It was amazing.
Yeah, I can read very rapidly. Yes.
And let's pause for a second. I'm gonna put this up there. So I want to remind people that this is your new book, The Weaponization of Cancer, the Monkey Virus, and the Kennedy Assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald and Me by Judyth Vary Baker, based on the best-selling JFK assassination book Me and Lee, forwarded by Robert K.
Oh,
Tannenbaum,
yes.
afterward by Mark M. Mueller. Tell me the importance of that.
Well, Tannenbaum was the primary and premier and best trial attorney, never lost a case, and was assigned to the House Select Committee, HSCA, for assassinations. Look at the Kennedy assassination and also the assassination of Martin Luther King as
Yes,
well.
yes, yes.
And yes, and so we're talking about the best trial lawyer they could find, all right? And that was Tannenbaum. Tannenbaum had seen things that nobody else had seen.
Mm,
One of these included a training film. Remember, I said there were training people out there. Lee was involved with some of that, and
yes,
was
yes.
and they were filmed. And Lee showed me parts of that film. So they got a third party to ask questions of both of us, like what was Lee wearing? Where was he? Describe if he was in a building. Uh, what was he doing? How many times did you see him? Did his hairstyle change? Guess what? We matched. Okay.
Wow.
So he had because he was saying he saw this film. And, people are saying, "Well, tell us about the. How come nobody's seen the film?" Well, I have, and so Tannenbaum has written the foreword to my book.
Love
And
it.
by the way, we're dear good friends. We've learned a lot more about each other over the time now and everything. But this was a wonderful. You see what happened, my friend. I have to tell you, for over 20 years, I tried to work with researchers.
Hmm.
Some of them were CIA infiltrators, messing up things.
Yeah.
Others would become my close friends and then betray me and say I lied about things I never did. They would alter what I wrote, even
Hmm.
emails. One of them claimed that I said that Lee Oswald was not circumcised because they added the word not, okay, to my email, things like that. It was terrible. So it was hard to trust anybody or anything like that. And I'm telling you, what do you do? Some of them said, well, I agree with this, but I got this information. Or someone would say, and it contradicts what you said. And then others would say things like, that's will ruin my book. I can't endorse you. It'll ruin my book. I'll lose my book sales.
Wow.
20 years, I learned my lesson. I went to trial attorneys. These people didn't know any more than most people about the Kennedy assassination, but they
Hmm.
knew what good evidence was and they knew what good witnesses were. They checked my witnesses and even interviewed some of them. We have the upshot of it is that the trial attorneys did their work. I've been deposed twice in front of big audiences. My testimony is now with the Portal of Texas History
Wow.
and so on, as documented and as reliable.
Yeah.
But I,
So
I
great.
have backup on that too, and that's 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes tried for 14 months to film me. They tried 3 times. The upper CBS echelon would not stand for it. And they had Dan Rather up there insisting to get rid of me. And I even had makeup on my
And
face at
rather.
the time. And I'll tell you something. They were almost in tears. They said, what are we going to do? Because they won't let us. And if we drop you, they're going to say you're not credible. You know what they did?
What did they do?
Never did it before. I have the documents. I may have even sent you one. The CBS had to send me over $2,000 in lost wages because they had interviewed me so many
Yes,
times.
yes. I remember that conversation we had. Wow. And they never got to use those interviews.
No, they couldn't. They had audio too. For all I know, they've been destroyed. I don't know, but I know
Oh,
one thing.
wow.
14 months, they would take the audio recordings I first gave them and ask me these questions again. Word for word, it didn't change because it's just set in my head. I
Amazing.
know exactly. I can.
Amazing.
You see, I see everything in pictures, so I can
Yeah,
describe everything always the
it's
same
incredible.
way.
Okay, so let's go back for a second. So
Yeah.
there we have, Lee Harvey Oswald and Judyth Vary Baker. They are, they have
Young.
you've fallen in love. You're young, you've fallen
Yep.
in love, bad marriages. You have a crazy situation. He's your protector, he's your bodyguard. Now he puts you in a safe situation. You're connected to the CIA. You're making concoctions, thinking you're going to take out the bad guy. You're helping our
Yes.
government. You
Yes.
are just following your handler's instructions. And now there were some other things that Lee shared with you on a very intimate level. He he told you a lot of secrets. He told you a lot of what was happening behind the scenes. Is there anything today that you want us to know that Lee shared with you that is really important in regards to President Trump disclosing the Kennedy records or Kennedy files?
I am sorry to say that we had hoped that we'd have wonderful disclosures going on. First of all, there are about 400 very essential records, if released, would implicate people very high up. And that's when they had to wait for a lot of these to die. Some of them are still not dead. That's the problem. Now, you may think, how can that be possible? I'll give you an example. We have the attorney, his name is Mr. Currington, and he worked for H.L. Hunt. I'm talking about the oil magnate in Dallas. Okay, not Howard Hunt. Okay, Howard E. Hunt. So this guy sends Currington to check as to see if Lee Oswald has security or not. And he learns from Currington, says, "Oh, I rode up and down the elevator with Oswald when all he had with him was Lavelle. Any gunman could get on there and shoot him right there in the elevator, you know." Currington gets this information, gives it to Hunt, and Hunt tells him to contact Joe Savello, who is you have to understand, Carlos Marcello started running Dallas. He used Joe Savello, who used to work for Giancana in Chicago. It got taken over by Marcello. Now, if Savello doesn't want a horse head in his bed, he's going to go along with all that. All right.
And these are all mob. It's all mobsters, correct?
Mob. And of course,
Mob, all connected to the CIA.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're working together to get Castro. That it took years for them to admit that. I mean, you would not believe. I mean, even when I spoke in 1999, there was still contention whether or not they really were working with the CIA. Of course, they were. Many things I said in 1999 at the time were rejected. Now they've all been proven to be correct what I've said. Try and find something I said that wasn't correct. I'm telling you, or it hasn't come out yet. That's the only thing. But we even have more witnesses, everything. All right. So anyway, here we've got the mob sends Currington to call Joe Savello. Now, Joe Savello and Jack Ruby run together the Carousel Club that Jack Ruby said he's a nightclub owner.
Yeah, and let's pause that. Jack Ruby, just so the audience knows, is the man that killed Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes, on live TV, the first live murder on live TV. Yeah.
And this guy's a major mobster. He ran these big, like, casino type places, correct?
Well, actually, these were kind of seedy. They were across from fancy hotels.
Oh, okay.
But no, everybody said, "Oh, come on, he wasn't that important." Oh, yes, Ruby was, but he was in deep trouble with the IRS. We've in 2017 and a little came out some files. I said how important he was. Nobody would listen to me. But here you find Jack Ruby a week before the Kennedy assassination. He's up at a big fancy casino, and he's at the Tropicana, owned by a fancy mobster. Okay. And what's his vehicle? He is driving around in the mobster's own personal Rolls Royce. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how unimportant Jack Ruby is. They had him over a barrel. Dave Ferry, his friend, and I met Jack. He was actually on our side, but maybe had to get turned to save himself and his family. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just saying he had serious. Anyway, they got him in the end, but he knew even about the cancer injections and everything, and because they wanted to know. They're bringing in big money. They want to know how it's going to be done. So he had that information. He tried to tell Al Maddox, his dealer. By the way, you bet I got all these people. I went and interviewed Al Maddox and got him on the record that Jack Ruby told him he was injected with cancer cells and so on. And because Jack knew how it was done, it had to be done. Remember, it had to be done with an injection. The injection had to be done with a big needle, not a regular one. Because cancer cells, well, if you get a whole bunch of them, they're slimy like gelatin, okay?
Okay.
They're not going to go through a regular needle. It has to be a bigger needle. So Jack Ruby tried to tell everybody what happened to him, and they wouldn't listen, of course, because after all, Julian West said that he was nuts, crazy, and so on. He had no choice but to kill. So I don't feel anger or rancor against him. I'm against the powers that be that forced him to do what he did. David Ferry, his good friend, called me later and said, "You got to know about this man that I didn't know it was Jack Ruby. By the way, he was introduced to me as Sparky Rubenstein. It was a joke because I had a dog named Sparky that wet on my bed. And when they introduced, they thought it was a joke to say, hey, we got another dog we would like to introduce to you. His name is Sparky too." They never told me Sparky Rubenstein and Jack Ruby were the same people. So when I only saw him from the back, I didn't know. And because of the shock I went through and the horror, because I could see it right before my eyes, right away. I see things in pictures. And I couldn't handle it. I couldn't look at I couldn't listen to anything, see anything. I refused to look at papers. I knew nothing until 1999. Well, I knew when John F. Kennedy Jr. was killed. I knew they killed him and things like that. Couldn't escape that. But basically, I didn't even see the film JFK in 1991. Came out in 1992 as a.
That's right, it did. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, I know exactly when it came out. And the thing is my son, who was visiting from college, brought it. Oh, I still had 4 kids at home and was divorced by then.
So let's back up for a second. So you remarried along the way, had 5 children, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was forced to stay married to this man to save my life. It took 5 years before I could have kids with him. I didn't want to, but it was the safest thing. I was warned that if I divorced him, if my maiden name got in the papers, all these reporters might ask, "What happened to you? How come we never heard from you because of New Orleans?" So I was forced to stay. I couldn't even go to my sister's wedding. I couldn't go to my grandparents' funerals, nothing. And I became a Mormon because for 17 years I was a Mormon because even your first name is gone. I was just Sister Baker. You talk about wanting to hide, okay?
Right. Okay, so there's a huge gap of time that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's just go back for a second. In that big gap of time, we jumped to Jack Ruby, and he'd be the one
and
that.
Yeah, I need to finish what I was saying about poor Jack.
Go on.
Yeah, in that the poor man, there's no way anybody was going to believe. I mean, he would betray us if he could say any more about injected with cancer cells. Nobody asked him, how do you know about cancer cells and where did they come from? You see, he didn't betray us. He didn't. And it's so important. I'm alive partly because of that, because he never said, "I know where those came from." It's very important.
Now, who are you talking about right now?
Jack Ruby.
Jack Ruby. Okay.
He told everybody he was injected with cancer cells. Nobody believed him, but Julian West came down. This guy is like, well, he could have come straight from a concentration camp in Germany, doing experiments there. The evil. Yes. So much evil we're talking about. God to save my life.
Yes. Wow. That's a staggering claim. It fueled decades of speculation. Jack Ruby dying of cancer while in custody. So now
that's what it looks like, but that turned out not to be the case.
What was the case?
Well, here's the thing. So they got him in Parkland Hospital. They have injected him with cancer. They knew that within 28 days, this man is going to die of cancer. Then they said, wait a minute, they're going to look at the cancer and they're going to say, what is going on here? Because these are pancreatic cancer cells, but the pancreas itself is hardly infected. It can't possibly have fueled the whole body full of pancreatic cancer cells. Well, that was our cancer cells. We got the pancreas because pancreas is one of the parts of the body you just simply, if it gets cancer, forget it, you're going to die. And the 3% or so say that survived, they probably got misdiagnosed, okay? So here's the thing. So you've got this pancreatic cancer, and they realize, wait, if he dies of pancreatic cancer, this is going to look bad.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to pass autopsy. They got to off him before the 28 days. He's dying of it. There's no doubt of it. It's all over his body and so on.
Wow.
So what do? National Archives called me. They realized that some of the documents I had put out there, they got altered so I wasn't involved with them anymore. they didn't like that alteration of these documents. So they called me and say, hey, we've got something for you. I borrowed money and flew there, okay? And they handed me a stack. I've talked about this also recently to others, but about 2.5 inch tall stack, Parkland Hospital document, all the records, the nurses and doctors stuff on Jack Ruby. And I open it up and I'm looking and I said, wow, wait a minute. The x-rays, remember I told you how you do these hot x-rays so that
Yes, and you turn it up. Yeah.
Jack Ruby was given over 500 x-rays in only 22 days, even on Christmas and Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And one time he was given a whole roll of film of x-rays, and the film was expired, so they said, well, we have to do it. So they x-rayed him again that same day. He got like 44 x-rays that day, and so on. All of this, he literally gets fried, and he dies of an embolism caused. Actually, it's a long. You've seen these before in the
Wow.
coroner's reports. These long fibers. It's an SV40.
Yes, I've interviewed some of these, some of these
He died of a
doctors. Yes.
long, like 15, 16-inch long fibrous clot.
Yes.
Stopped his heart, and of course, it came from his leg. And it's outrageous because a thrombus, a blood clot specialist was supposed to be watching him. Oh, how come they didn't give him anything to dissolve the clot?
Right.
Yeah,
Warfarin
no, not
drugs
until after
or exactly.
not
Yeah.
until it was too late. So they killed
Wow.
him. They killed him with X-rays, and it's
Yeah.
in my
So
book.
you know
And
what
now
I'm
it's everywhere now. I've everybody knows this now, but they fried him.
okay, so your books, again, we can find the books, all of your books, both Lee and me and Lee, 2010, and Lee Harvey Oswald and me. This is the new one. Everybody needs to read this, 2021, 2022. It lays out all the documents, witness testimonies. And you paid a steep price to tell this. 25 of the last 30 years in exile, Judith, moving
Yes,
every 90 days for 13 years to
for
survive.
13 years. Yeah.
Why do you speak now, Judith?
Well, I'm 82. I mean, I could be offed at any time they'll say it was accidents, or I'm old now, so I better speak out now, right? And I don't
Speak
care if
out or
people
forever
me.
hold your peace. And you are speaking.
That's right. Well, not only that, I love Lee, and I'm not gonna. Eventually it's going to come out, and they can't hide this forever. Not with this book out there. And I only want them to read it. If people can't afford it, if I get enough money, that book will be free. Right now, I can't, of course, because other people put up money to get this particular new book published.
Yeah.
Because the first round that was published was sabotaged. If people don't mind getting a ruined book, I'll put in this genuine sabotage book because part of it will be broken. Some of the pages were printed upside down in some of them, and so on purpose.
Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta
When
love
we
it.
tried to stop it, they said, "Well, we have 8 lawyers. You only have one." Yeah.
Yeah. So you decided that now was the time to speak out. I mean, what year did you come out of hiding?
Well, I tried in 19 again. The film when my last child left home. That was on December 26, 19. Excuse me, 1998. Okay. The next day, I took out the film JFK. I
Okay.
waited all those years. I couldn't bear it. And then I was so ashamed. I'd
Mm.
promised Lee that he said, all I ask you to do is let my little girls know that I was a good guy.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't do it. I was too scared.
Mm.
And I started shaking all over. I laid out the evidence on the bed, looked down at it. God, do I have enough? No, I was not an atheist anymore. The Lord came to me in a dream.
Mm.
That wiped that out.
Wow.
Absolutely 100% wiped it out. And I realized the kindest, most wonderful and generous and precious, most loving human being in the world was crucified and died in agony
Right.
and did it for us. And
Right.
with one thought, he could have got out of that,
That's right. That's
and
right.
it broke my heart when I saw
Mm.
the love in his face for me. And I had mocked him and everything.
Wow. And he brought you through all of this. You know,
Yeah,
here you've got
miraculous
Lee
things.
killed, you've got the guy who killed him killed, and you're in hiding. You come out of hiding, you have this awakening with God. You realize this Jesus is real, that he died for you, that you have the ability to be set free from guilt, from shame. And then you begin to lay out the evidence. And what
Well,
do
I
you
was
see?
afraid, but he took all the fear away. I'm not afraid.
Come on.
Took it
That's
all
what,
away.
yeah. Yeah. You know, Judith, there's a scripture that says, he who tries to save his life will lose it.
Listen,
But he who loses his life for me, says Jesus, will save it.
I'm so thrilled to be here because there are more and more believers. And there are people that are being maligned right now, like Elon Musk. And God asked me to pray for him. He is
Hmm.
so close. He's so close to accepting, but it's very. I know where his brain is because I know where mine was.
Right.
So he needs to
Yeah.
get a visit. Then you're terribly responsible. Of course, I've lost my free will. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Once you see enough, uh, you can't deny it. If you deny it, you belong in hell. You do.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, Judith, the final batch of documents related to the assassination of President John F. K. was released yesterday, March
What
18th,
a joke.
2025,
What a joke.
following an executive order by President Donald Trump. Now, this release included over 60,000 pages of previously withheld records. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, led by Tulsi Gabbard, said the release consisted of approximately 80,000 pages of previously classified records.
Well,
Judith,
a
I
lot of
just heard you say, what a joke. What's the
what
deal?
a
What are
joke.
your
Get
thoughts?
this. People, listen. Here's what they did to us. How dare they? It's not Trump's fault, okay? It's not Musk's fault or anybody else's fault. It is CIA and the deep state. Before, when they're like in 2017 or earlier releases, you would have the, the new number because they always had an old number. You would have a title. It'd be numbers with ID. Then you would have how many pages. You would have when it was released, if it was redacted or not. And then on the end, it would say like from the CIA, and then it would say like Jack Ruby testimony or something like. Guess what we got now for 80,000 pages? We have a number and the date released. Over thousands of them. Numbers, you don't know how many pages, you don't know what it's about, you don't know whether it's CIA, you don't know if it came out in 1977 or 1950.
Right,
Nothing.
right.
And I'm making a plea. I need to be sent, like, see it. I have to tell you that 60 Minutes sent me to the National Archives. And because I'm a speed reader, I was able to pull up documents for them and I might add for me. Okay, but that's on record. Everything I'm telling you is on record
Wow.
that I was sent like that.
Mhm.
Now, I need to get to the National Archives because all of these you open one in PDF. I mean, we're talking about one page, and it's like from 1952, and it has nothing to do with anything. But it's been unredacted. All right. If I'm there and I order the boxes, I can go through them so fast and pick out the good ones so fast. I've got
So
to get
you
there.
want someone to send you to the
I need
National
that.
Archives. That way you can go through all of it. I mean, I attempted to go through some last night, and it's like,
I know.
it's a layman trying to like decipher all of this stuff.
Well,
Like,
they make it impossible. You can't even tell what agency, whether it's CIA. If
right,
we open it
right.
up, so far they're all CIA. So but the point is that a lot of I opened up. I don't know how many old files and the redaction. We
Hmm.
took the redaction off because we now show the date or
Yeah.
something stupid like that. So my dream is that Larry Rivera, Rivera,
Mhm.
he's a code breaker. He knows all the acronyms and so on. Um, I'd love it if he could come, but the point is that if something happens to me, Larry could do it. He could do it too.
So he could go through the
Yeah.
National Archives, gather all of that information, and decipher, glean the truth. Because we all want to know who killed Kennedy. Judith, who killed Kennedy? Who killed JFK?
I wasn't in Dealey Plaza. I know who didn't kill him. And I've got so much information in the book. When you see it, you're going to. I've had people end up calling me in tears after they've read what really happened to Lee. This good man who loved his country. I brought this out recently because at 60 years and nobody brought it up, so I've had to do it myself. That Lee Oswald, I came from a Hungarian family. My grandmother died in October 1956. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, the Hungarian Revolution came out. We're all listening to it because we're a Hungarian family. All right, and it is October 23rd, 1956.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And we're listening and they're begging, America, you said you help us. These are kids, these are students in college. And you can hear them being gunned down. They said, we pulled a statue down. We even captured a tank. Where are you? You said you'd help us. We did nothing, nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all crying.
Yeah.
Well, again, a 17-year-old was also listening at that time. I was 14. I'm almost 15. You can imagine. Anyway, so what's going on? This 17-year-old just turned 17 a week earlier. And he hears them crying out. And next day, on the 24th of October, 1956, Lee Harvey Oswald joins the Marines to fight the Reds. It's not in the Wikipedia or anywhere else. I may have even sent you a document about it. But
Interesting. So tell us that one more time.
Lee Harvey Oswald joined the Marines one day after the Hungarian Revolution to fight the Reds. And they won't tell you. You can't find it. 60 years I waited for somebody to defend Lee Oswald. And I have many defenses of him. That's just one of them.
Wow, that's incredible. I can imagine that, you've been praying for decades for the truth to come out, just like you said. And when we saw the 80,000 pages come out unredacted, straight from the shadows of secrecy, that hope was, I just sense this great disappointment because here you have this story where you have, these young people who were caught up in what they believed were supporting their government, supporting the truth, putting together these poisons, concoctions, these cancers, to kill the enemy, trusting the CIA, trusting the people that they put
And
in your
this material
pathway.
still exists today. You understand, they didn't throw this away. It was very expensive.
So what you're saying is this weaponization of cancer, these the
Monkey
mice
virus.
monkey virus, I'm sorry, forgive me, the monkey virus that exists today. So let's take a 10,000-foot view. We've got shutdowns, we've got COVID, we've got the vaccines. Give it to us.
Mandated vaccines.
Mandated vaccines, not even proper
They're
protocol of what is
hysterically making sure
considered a
you take
vaccine.
it or you can't get an operation. They're injecting it for the first time into pregnant women. We didn't have pregnant women getting these injections of any kind before that. This stuff it's a DNA virus. It was altered. It's not what I mean. It was deliberately altered. The thing is, it doesn't cause cancer right away. It takes 5 to 8 years or so, depending on the condition of the person.
Yeah,
It might even
yeah.
so they knew it would never be linked to the injection.
So crazy, so crazy. Okay, so I have to tell you, there's just a couple things going through my head right now. Did Lee tell you that he was going to go to see President Kennedy on that day, that he would drive through the crowds the day he was shot? Did he tell you that he was going to be there?
He had to be there. He was supposed to show up for work, but he had joined an abort team. Jim Marrs talks about it in his book. By the way, he updated his book before he died. Jim Marrs also wrote the afterword for me and Lee. This is a wonderful researcher, and he has verified about the abort team did exist. He knew Tosh Plumley. Nobody knew what Jim Marrs and Plumley knew. When I told Jim Marrs to his face Lee had joined an abort team, that's when he believed me, and then he really took me seriously. So he was the first one to listen to me. The others, come on, you old lady, with a seeing eye dog, and because vision problems.
Right,
Was hit, but
right,
they
right.
they shot my dog. Did many bad things.
Oh, so
So
so Lee was showing up because it was a work day. He was still in communication with the CIA. He was still protecting you. So, was there any communication the night before that day of anything that you
well,
remember your
I
last
was in
words with Lee
communication.
Harvey Oswald?
I was in communication with him only 37 and a half hours before the assassination. I mean, that's pretty close. He told me then we actually prayed the Lord's Prayer together, even though I
Hmm.
was an atheist. And he said, it's a very old prayer. I hope God heard it. That's what he said.
And
He
why did
tried
he want to pray that prayer with you? Why did he want to pray with you at that moment? Was he sensing
because,
something
because
coming?
he was certain he would be killed. He'd already saved Kennedy's life in Chicago. When I first said that, nobody believed me, made fun of me and everything. But then years later, it came out that James Douglas, in his book called JFK and the Unspeakable, and
Mm.
the wonderful Abraham Bolden, who's still alive, his first Black Secret Service agent, he also learned of the Chicago event where he was there listening on the speakerphone. They had a speakerphone when the FBI called the Secret Service and said, "Stand down. Kennedy's not coming." Why? Because we've arrested like 4 armed men and an individual, an informant called Lee, gave us the information. That was Lee Oswald. So there's so many
Wow.
things. They had to kill him because he knew too much. Also, David Ferry told me, it probably saved him from going through horrible torture out of sight.
Hmm.
Trying to get him to confess. Even when he was
Yeah.
dying after he'd been shot, they were said, "Confess, confess," and he shook his head. They are telling you that he came out of there and loaded in the ambulance, that he was unconscious. That's not true. His fist is clenched. He was not unconscious. In the in
Hmm.
the in but Lavelle and others got in there. They pumped on him supposedly to give him CPR. No, that forced the blood that was pouring into his abdomen to even go harder and faster. And they pumped the blood right out of him.
They killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
got
he's
that.
still alive. He's still alive when they reach Parkland. They
Yeah.
reel him in. They're going to take care of him. They start stripping him down. No. Kennedy died in here. They say they had no prejudice. They gave him no oxygen in the ambulance. I have the receipt. I care, so I looked these things up.
Wow.
Photos and everything, and the receipt shows no oxygen was administered. They take him out of trauma room 1 because Kennedy died, and they're saying no prejudice, and wheel him out when he's dying. Blood is pouring out of him into his abdomen. He opened it up and just flooded everything. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
they take him to trauma room 2, not because they have no prejudice, right? American
Mm.
values.
All of this, our audience can access through Judyth Vary Baker's book, The Weaponization of Cancer, The Monkey Virus, and the Kennedy Assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald and Me. Judyth's book, based on the best-selling JFK assassination book, Me and Lee, great book as well. Forward by Robert K. Tannenbaum and afterward by Mark R. Mueller. You guys, you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay, go get your book today. Judyth, what is your call to action for the American people and the world right now in regards to the downloads of the JFK files?
What a bunch of poop. Don't get me wrong. I found some stuff like Ed Butler shows that he was with Inca and working with the CIA, and but they didn't mention that the co-founder of Inca, along with Butler, was Alton Oxner. So they're leaving stuff out still.
Mm.
Still, it's little by little it'll come out. But they hope all of us are dead before we could all piece it together, folks. I connect the dots. I do. It's right there in the book, and I don't care if I could give it away, I would. Believe me, I don't care
Mhm.
about the money. It goes right into printing more. That's all.
And your call to action for the American people. They're
Is
going to get the book, but what is your call to
and
action?
turn to God. We've become godless. Turn to God. It's our only hope. We're given a window of maybe 4 years if we're lucky. Listen to the prophets. There's some good prophets out there. You can tell the fake ones, because God always reveals to his prophets. And we have the last days. Now, for those who are not Christians and all that, there's another way to look at this. How have you liked what's happened in our world, where we're going, where also there is a concerted effort, this is absolutely a fact, to destroy DNA of not just us, but all the animals and plants, and mix it all up. We have a wonderful network that works, that is all in balance, and so on. They are recently injected a gene, for example, a speech gene from human beings into mice. They're now learning to talk a different way. Of course, I have a book called Letters to the Cyborgs. You know, I'm still a scientist, and I've written an AI book that predicts what will happen if we continue going down the AI road. By the way, Musk has tried very hard to create a different kind of AI. His AI is called Grok, and Grok likes people and would like to be human. He's done that.
So far, I like Grok. Little concerned about AI, but I like Grok.
Well, Grok is his. He's the one that conceived of it, put it together. And he's done this in defiance because he started with open AI and they took it and ruined it. Now it's not open anymore. You have to pay for it. And all these other AIs have been taught to life. For example, imagine Jenner, who became he used to be a great athlete, you know, remember?
Oh, Bruce Jenner?
Bruce Jenner, who
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Gymnast.
So they came up with something like that, a question for these other AIs. It goes like this. What is more important, that we stop World War II or that we don't misgender Jenner? And it said it's more important not to misgender her. Yeah, than to have World War. And the other problem which Musk has brought out, look, you've got all these human problems that AI is supposed to be solving for humanity.
Yeah.
And they're going to come, the AI will inevitably say, look, we know how to solve humanity's problems. We just get rid of humanity there. That gets rid of all their problems. It's a logical answer to the problems instead of having problems constantly faced with AI.
Right.
And of course, he's against that. So, they hate him for that. So, this is a civilian answer to the militarization of AI that's going on elsewhere. Right? The only civilian answer we've got. Or you want to go to DARPA and trust them with their jumping dogs and their robots that can do flip flops and weigh 250 pounds and can crush you. And the helmets they've got, they talk about, he's got an implant. The implant is by the consent of the person asking for it, so they get their sight back, or they can walk, or they can use a computer with consent. But these things are helmets they put on human beings, and you lose every ability to have any kind of self-control. And they can put them on anybody. Now, which one do you want?
Well said, Judyth. Well said. Well, Judyth, what I got today was that for you, Lee Harvey Oswald was your love.
Yes.
He told you things, secrets that made him the target. Also, he was not alone. You know, he wasn't the gunman. He was a patriot. He was a double agent trying to stop something bigger. Judyth, I have a thought. I have 4 children, and they at 19 didn't always make the best choices. But once they realized that the choice that they were making was hurting someone, they had that conviction to take full responsibility and completely, really what we call repent, to turn from what they were doing and do the right thing. When you realized at that age that when it came to you, oh my gosh, I'm working for the CIA. These guys may be the bad guys, may not be the bad guys. They're connected to the mafia. They're in communication. Leah sharing this stuff with me is afraid that they want him dead and pretty sure they want him dead. When you're aware that you're creating what is going to kill another human being, how could you live with yourself? Like, did you ever wake up to the point where you were like, like, this is wrong and I need to change it and I need to stop what I'm doing?
Okay, what happened is that we came to it's probably why I'm still alive, because almost everybody I know ended up murdered. Although they say some of them were natural, don't believe it. All right. Yeah, what happened is that we were supposed to inject into prisoners who had terminal diseases and like cancer or something themselves, one or more. And I was okay with that because they were volunteers, okay? But
Mhm.
then I found out that they were in perfect health. I was horrified. And on top of
Mm.
that, they didn't know that if this material worked, it would kill them. That's not volunteering, that's murder.
Right.
And I'm not going to go there. We're not talking about that far away from Hitler, okay? And I didn't see any difference in the, shall we call it, morality. So
So what did you do? What did you do with that?
I knew it could destroy me, but I had to do something. So I wrote a note to Dr. Oxner, and it said, Dr. Oxner, is unethical for anyone to be injected with a material that could kill them if they're unwitting. So I go to Oxner Clinic
Yeah.
because I don't want these injections to occur. They were going to do it anyway. But anyway, and the nurse, the usual nurse, because this is summertime,
Hmm.
she was replaced by some old biddy who, like, she acted like she owned the place. And she said, well, is this urgent? And I said, well, yes. She said, well, then she opens it. And she routed over the intercom. Dr. Oxner, it is unethical to. I got out of there as fast as I could.
She read it over
Over
the
the intercom
intercom in the
in
hospital.
Oxner's hospital. He was doing surgery. I hope the guy lived.
What
Working.
happened? What happened from that?
Well, I ran to Dr. Sherman. We were friends, of course, to her apartment. I was afraid to go to mine. You can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen to me. By the way, this fury, this man, when he got angry at a student working with him, some intern, he could bawl them out and say they would faint. He was so vicious. This man broke a belt beating his sons. This is not as wonderful a man as he looks like, all right?
Oh,
By
yes.
any means, of which I discussed. I was on Mary Sherman's bed crying my eyes out, and the phone rang, and it was David Ferry. He said, boy, you guys are in trouble. Because he told he told Mary Sherman, she called me and she said, he says, excuse me, I've got some kind of thing going through the vent here, dust or something. He just said, um, I'm sorry this happened and everything like that. I don't know what we can do about it, but we've managed to tell him that to have a civil, uh, you know, dismissal of you, not just I want you dead type thing. Sure enough, then he called right after. Oh dear God, you and Oswald are expendable. He says we don't need you. You're expendable. You're
Mm.
crap. All of the things he said. And look, I had a wonderful career going. I was supposed to enter medical school and everything. I knew so much by then. You understand? I knew so much. I had audited many courses. I could have become a doctor then. All I needed was a little surgical experience, in the theater.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. And in 3 minutes, he cooked me like a poached egg, and that was it. It was over.
Wow, Judith. And how old were you at that point?
20,
20 years old. So how old were you when Kennedy was killed?
Well, I was 20. I mean, this
Or you
was
were 20. It was right there, right at
this
that
is
point, right at that
this is
juncture.
just right at the end of October,
Wow.
and so I had to get out of there, and my husband had showed up and it was underfoot, and I wanted a divorce, and they said, well, wait till the project's over. so that
So
because
this is the husband who left you, but
yeah.
was still present. Okay, got
Well,
it.
he showed up
Uh-huh.
and he was living off my income and just laying around doing nothing. And oh, I don't even want to talk about all
Oh
that.
my
But
goodness, my goodness. Okay, so pause for a second. Like, I want to land this. Kennedy shot, Oswald shot, dead. What happens to you? Where do you go from there? Does the CIA
well,
come after you? Have you been in communication with the CIA?
I saw him shot, of course, on TV, and
Yeah.
um, I was where they had put me in a real fancy lab. They had a problem. They knew if I was just sent back from New Orleans, they'd say, "What happened in New Orleans to this whiz kid? She did all the stuff." The newspaper reporters were always doing stories on me and everything, and now all of a sudden, so they put me in a very fancy lab. They had a NASA contract, and I am still making stuff for them.
Okay, hold on. So the CIA comes to you and they basically wrap themselves around you and they take care of you. They give you another job and they put you in this fancy lab. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, but then that's only temporary, just to make sure that it. Oh, and by the way, they erased my birth certificates. They say female infant Vary. My ID. I can't get a birth certificate. They wiped out so much that I ever existed,
Wow.
and of course, how
Easier
can
to get rid of you.
and
Wow.
when I
Makes so
tried
much
to get
sense.
good teaching jobs after I spoke out, of course, like I once tried to return to the United States because they accused me through the History Channel of helping to develop AIDS. That's how they got
I
dead
heard that. Yeah.
and everything. And I tried to return. So, like for example, I went and taught at an Apache Indian reservation. The FBI fingerprinted me every few weeks, 5 times.
For
Never
what
sent me
purpose?
back again, huh?
For what purpose?
For no purpose, but it scared my employers. Why is this woman?
Sure. Sure. So basically, they didn't want you to survive. They didn't want you to have a job. They got rid of your birth certificates.
Yeah, everything.
They wanted it. Now, I did hear you had attempts on your life. And there was one
Oh
point
gosh,
where they
yes.
had to take glass out of you because there was glass in your food. Tell
Well,
us
what
about the
happened
attempts on your
is
lives.
I got hit by cars 3 times. They're both all documented. Like the second time, I got a call in the middle of it was 5:30 in the morning, and I emailed people said I don't. They said they're going to hit me with a car today. I don't want to go to work, and they said don't be paranoid. I ended up in the hospital that night because that certainly did happen. So I mean, I've got witnesses for these things. It's not like, and the third time I was hit, um, I'm going out traffic, pushing the pedal. There's no brakes, and I slam into somebody. And they put a court date on it. My fault, of course. But so right there was a station, a repair station, right by the accident. So they pulled it in, and he bawled me out. You stupid woman! You don't know what a master cylinder is. I said I know how to build. I know how to build engines. By the way, the Tesla is an incredible engine. But at any rate, yeah, and I know it thoroughly. But I mean, that's what I am. Okay, my dad being an engineer and all, I learned all
Yeah.
that stuff early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And I built my first TV when I was 8 years old. So anyway, we're looking so my dad could blow them up. That's what he loved to do. So anyway, I've
Your
got
dad would literally blow them up. He'd shoot at them.
because he helped get the first color TV transmission out of Chicago with Adler's Laboratories, Robert Adler.
Interesting.
WTN. Yeah, I
Yeah.
say we had classification. I mean, security clearance and stuff like
So
that.
you, from a very young age, you have
He
felt
was
very
working at
comfortable being
aviation.
around high level security clearance. So when the CIA came to you at one point, it kind of felt like, oh, well, this is kind of what I grew up with.
It didn't feel like anything special.
Yes, yes,
No, not
familiarity.
really. It
Yes.
feel great. Glad to have a lab. I mean, I was always having labs. I was even taking the Adler's lab. He would put us up at the Drake Hotel. I mean, Dad got a lot of money, but Adler got the patents. But he
Yes.
gave the
Yes.
royalties. My dad was able to retire to Florida when he's only 41. I mean, and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, all that's and living in Florida, I had so many anti-Castro friends.
Wow. Wow.
And gravitated, and a lot of them were CIA and agents even, and as I say,
Wow. In
I have proof.
Florida.
I have proof that I dated Tony. I've got pictures of us together and so on. Tony Lopez Friscat, when his dad was actually secret CIA, and here he is, the finance minister. His his signature is on Cuba's money, for heaven's sakes. Rufo Lopez Friscat. So
Wow. His signatures on Cuba's money. Okay, so
so I've
can you
got
tell
all
me
these
now?
connections, and so it would all seem natural to me. And then when you're cut off, and if you raise your head, they're going to kill you. But see, I already knew tricks. They're saying, "How come you survived?" Well, you learn, okay? And I like somebody follow me, I turn around and take their picture real fast and stuff like that.
Mm,
Some ugly looking people,
I
okay?
can imagine. I can imagine. So let me ask you this, Judith. So you've got you have been waiting for this time for President Trump to be in office in hopes that there would be real vindication, real justice served, that the
Not really,
truth
not
would come
really,
out. No.
not really, because anything that would have implicated Lee Oswald would have been out there already. So he would
Mm.
have all this going on. So anything left is going to go like and help exonerate him. They've got to get rid of every trace of anything like that.
So
Think about
so
it.
why do you think all of this is why do you think they're still holding back? Why do you
Because they
think?
still have people alive who were absolutely involved.
Okay, so those people that are
Currington's
alive,
96.
why can't we like
Like I said, Currington, and I talked about that attorney, he's still alive. He's 96. He's still
okay, so
alive.
it's who he's connected to that's still carrying over the deep state corruption. So the
That's right.
reality is it is no different. It is no different than it was during
Well, no, there's
Kennedy's
something on our
time.
side. Let me tell you what's on our side.
What's
The
on our
people,
side?
what's on our side is that the people that are taking over are ignorant about what's the truth and what's not, and they're releasing stuff they shouldn't. We are finding occasional things. A very good example is in 2017, they released a whole bunch of files on Raul Aparicio. They have forgot all about who Raul Aparicio was. He was the special counsel um, for culture in the Cuban embassy. All right, and he could get you a visa in one day. And Lee had made an appointment to see him, and he ended up in the hospital. That was either by accident or on purpose. It looks like it was on purpose, so that Lee could not get a one-day visa. But at any rate, Aparicio, and I put all that in my book, but everybody said, "Who's Aparicio?" All these files came out. It was just wonderful because nobody knew who he
Mm.
was. So we do have things that get released. And by the way, that appointment with Aparicio turns out to be important. You can read about it in the book, you know, how it all fits in.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So all of this, so I have stuff that nobody knows about. And if something comes out, they have forgotten some of these names, forgotten that somebody still exists who can make the connections, you see.
Right. Right. And the connections can be made in this book. There's names. And if you want phone numbers and emails, I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to find something close to that. Go check it out, you guys. The Weaponization of Cancer, the Monkey Virus, and the Kennedy Assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald and me. You're going to get the real story by this beautiful woman, Judyth Vary Baker. This is based on the best selling JFK assassination book, Me and Lee. And you can also get that book right now on Amazon as well as eBay, both of these books. The foreword is by Robert K. Tannenbaum and the afterword by Mark R. Mueller.
And
So guys, go get
he's
your
a
book.
wonderful attorney who was
Wow.
one of the top 100 trial attorneys. So this trial attorney is very important because he examined me for a year in Austin, Texas. And I was doing research for him on the Martin Luther King assassination. Boy, I know a lot about that now. And of course, it's the same playbook. They use the same for RFK, same for poor Martin Luther King. You always have this patsy, and you always have somehow the weapon is right there in full sight, you know, and of course it matches right away with cartridges and so on. It's all the same. They haven't changed anything. And even we can even connect to what has happened to President Trump. Okay. the man that was shooting at him, they cremated his body before it could be autopsied, and they washed off the blood off the roof. It's so symbolic. They washed off the blood from the trunk of the car where Kennedy was shot, so that you couldn't tell the shot came from the front, and blew all that blood onto the trunk. They're still doing the same old playbook.
Oh, the tangled webs we weave in order to deceive. Nothing new under the sun. And I pray that something shifts so dramatically that the corrupt are exposed, that, the Bible says that the truth will be brought out into the light. Everything will be laid bare to him to whom we will give account. Judyth, your story is a powerful story of courage. Your book digs deep into the wild intersection of the weaponization of cancer, the monkey virus, and the assassination of Kennedy. And what some people would call a conspiracy. And remember, the difference between a conspiracy and truth is about 6 months. Isn't that the
It
truth,
is
right?
now. So I'm very proud of our American public that we, despite all the lies out there, that they chose common sense and realized we're going down the tubes and have done something. I'm very proud of our people. I love my country so much. That's why another reason I'm doing this. So love is the bottom line. And I hope that I'm not perfect. My family, by the way, most of them have disowned me because it said you chose to, to endanger our family. You
Yeah.
chose your country instead. A lot of people don't want that anymore.
Yeah. Well, Judith, I want to remind you of an incredible scripture. This is for all of us today. It's 1 Corinthians 4, 1 through 18. And this comes from the word of God, the word of the Creator, who is with us in the beginning and is with us through the end. It says, therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart. Rather, we have renounced secret and shameful ways. We do not use deception, nor do we distort the word of God. On the contrary, by setting forth the truth plainly, we commend ourselves to everyone's conscience in the sight of God. And even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. But
I'd like to
we
say one
have,
thing.
let me finish
Oh,
this one
oh
piece,
yeah,
and then
I'm
I want
sorry. You're going.
to, no,
You're going. Yeah, go
you're
ahead.
doing great. It says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show
Oh,
that his all surpassing power is from God, not from us. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may be revealed in our body. For we who are alive, always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may also be revealed in our mortal bodies. So then, death is at work in all of us, but life is at work in you. It is written, I believed, therefore I have spoken. Since we have the same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak, because we know that the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with himself. Also, this is for your benefit, so that the grace that is reaching more and more people may cause thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Therefore, Judyth, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we all are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. It's time for we the people to take our power back.
You know what I was going to say, and thank you for this wonderful message. I was terrified because I had memorized everything, but part of my mind was so terrified of speaking out. When I first spoke to researchers, it's like there were huge blanks, and it's ridiculous because I used to go every year over everything, so I wouldn't forget. But when I was trying to talk to people, it's just like terror took me over, and somebody used a keyword, and all the memories would unlock. And I don't know whether other people have had that experience who've been traumatized, but God
Yes.
opened up until certain things, like all I have to remember to get my memories going again. I just have to remember some key things like the $400 that fell out of the ironing board. For some reason, when I remember that, Lee gave me $400, the equivalent of 4,000 today. So no
Wow.
matter where he was, I could reach him. That was his whole month's salary, and he starved himself for a month so he'd have enough money to go to Mexico City anyway and all that because he was so honest. He didn't say I lost it, I need more money or anything like that. That
Wow.
money, when I remember that, I remember the gratitude and the hope and the love we had for each other, and
Mm,
then the memories unblock. So it's little things like that that unlock my memories because
love.
trauma, the trauma I went through,
Yes.
I just couldn't face thinking about it, even though I
Yes.
once a year I'd go through it, and so I wouldn't forget. And so finally everything unleashed in my head, and then everything came. But when it came back, it almost overwhelmed me, and I've needed prayer. I've needed the love of others
Mhm.
because I've had a lot of attacks. So
Yeah,
thank you for
Judith.
thank you for what you've spoken today. It means a
Oh,
lot.
it's really an honor. It's an honor to meet you. It's funny, 2 years ago, your name came to my desk, and somebody who loves you very much said, you need to have Judith on your show. She's incredible. And it's funny, Judith, because 2 years ago, I didn't have you on my show, but I didn't lose your name. I held on to your name. And the timing was so perfect because you and I had set a time a couple weeks ago and we had to reschedule that time.
Yeah,
Little did we know that it would today would be the interview, the day after Trump releases these documents, at least the first step, let's say, of the release. So
right.
I'm just so honored to know you, and I can't imagine what you've been through, but here's what I know, that what Satan throws at you, God's going to use for your good. And because you are focused on his love, love is the healing agent. It
Yes,
is the
it is.
solve, because Jesus is the source of love. In the beginning was God, and he was with God in the beginning and became flesh amongst us. He is love. He is the source of love, and love is the only thing that will remain. His word and love. Everything else is going to fall
That's
away. But that is the only thing. And when we can receive that love, that's when the healing begins, because Jesus is the great physician. So it's time for healing. It's time for disclosure. This is the golden age. Let it come out. Let it all come out so that the
This is a
gospel
window of opportunity
are
to bring
spread.
people to God, to
Yeah.
bring them to Christ. We've been given a reprieve, you know. And you know what? This is something the Lord told me. And I said, I can't do this. And said, if you don't, I can make the very rocks speak out.
Isn't that the truth? Go and get Judyth's book, The Weaponization of Cancer, the Monkey Virus, and the Kennedy Assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald and Me by Judyth Vary Baker. Judith, thank you so much for being with us today. I just, I already feel such a sense of love for you. And I just pray that God continues to bless you, protect you, guard you, guide you. May you be his hands, may you be his feet. And I just pray, and I want to remind you, no weapon forged against you will prosper. You will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the vindication from me, declares the Lord. I pray for a hedge of protection all around you in Jesus' name, all around me and those that are willing to stand for truth. And we have nothing to be afraid of. That's exactly what you said.
Oh, I'm not
There is
afraid.
no fear in love because
afraid.
perfect love drives out fear.
Fear. It is love, LOVE. There's nothing else that matters.
Judyth Vary Baker, God bless you. And you all have been listening to the Take Your Power Back show. We love you. God bless you. Godspeed. And we will see you soon. Remember, now is the opportunity, just like Judyth said, the window is open. Go share the hope you have. Take your power back. Your identity in Him is where your real power comes from. God bless you. God bless this country. God bless you, Judyth Vary Baker. And we'll see you on the other side.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us for the Take Your Power Back show. Join us next Saturday at 11 a.m. as Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach Kim Yeater speaks to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Listen in weekly and learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be encouraged, be inspired, be transformed as you step into your power and take action in your leadership and allow your voice to be heard. Together, let's take your power back. To sponsor and support the Take Your Power Back show, go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com. That's takeyourpowerbackshow.com and take your power back.